So yeah, first question. What was it like what was Troy like growing up?
I had a next door neighbor, Doreen, and we were best friends. And I remember taking the bus down to Troy. We would get dropped off at a Stewart's ice cream place, and we would take the bus, and we would go down to Troy, and we'd go to the bowling alley, hang out at the bowling alley. We used to go down to a 5 and 10 Woolworth store and get the penny candy and get little makeup and just toiletry type stuff. Walk around Troy. My mother used to take me shopping. There was 2 stores she took me shopping in Troy, Denby's and Peerless, and I still remember going shopping at those 2 places for clothes. And they always took us to a shoe store in downtown Troy. And we always got measured, and they don't have shoe stores like that anymore. And they would measure our feet, and we'd always get new school shoes for school. And I still remember getting saddle shoes. They were white with black, so that was fun. So Doreen and I would spend the whole day in downtown Troy, just walking around and grabbing lunch, going to a 5 and 10 cent store. So,
what was your? And I should have told you this before we started. There's sometimes that I'll ask you a question and there'll be an awkward pause where I'm not saying anything.
Yeah.
I do that just so in case you have another thought
Yeah.
that you want to add in.
Yeah.
But I also want to make sure when you finish talking, I'm not talking
Right.
over you at all. So
Yeah.
it might be just a weird pause.
Okay.
But often I leave that pause there because a lot of people will be like, "Oh, in this."
Yeah.
So this was a tough one. And I remember I came up with it. What was an iconic headline in the news that you remember as a child? Or what was a big incident in the world or in New York or Troy or Albany that you remember growing up?
I don't remember anything.
What about teen or young
Yeah,
adults?
even up through college.
I remember a bridge falling down. I think it was the Green Island Bridge. And I think, it was the Green Island Bridge that went into Troy. And I think it fell down. There wasn't cars on it. There was cars starting to go on it. But luckily the bridge fell down. And luckily nobody died. But the whole bridge just went down. So I do remember that.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So, what was it like living with 2 brothers?
They looked out for me, but having an older brother that was perfect, everybody seemed to compare me to my older brother, and he was perfect. And why can't you be more like him? Or look at Gary is doing all these athletics and he's doing great in school, and even the teachers, because I was the middle daughter. So everybody'd say, oh, look at your brother. He's doing this and this and this. And I mean, I did good in school, but I wasn't my brother. He was Mr. Social and into athletics. And so I got compared a lot to my older brother. My younger brother I was very close to, and we were very close, but he was the spoiled one, so he was the young one, so he got away with a lot. But I don't know, maybe it was being a middle child that was hard. I have to tell one story. I was watching my younger brother, and we had a hill at the end of our street, and we were going to go sleigh riding. So we had a toboggan, the old wooden toboggans. So we get on the toboggan. He wanted to be in the front and wanted to steer. I said, okay, I'll get in back of you. So he's in the front. I'm in back of him. All of a sudden, we're going through all these weeds. We're not on the path anymore. And I look at him, and he's turned around. So he's backwards. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're off the trail. We're going down the hill. And I was like screaming, but we didn't get off the toboggan. Next thing I know, there was a trailer at the bottom of the hill toward the, not right where the path was. So the toboggan was curled and the toboggan went under the trailer and my brother's back hit the trailer. I fall off. He's at the bottom of the hill going, and I'm like, oh my gosh, all the neighbors saw it. They're all running out. He's crying, I'm crying. So we're walking back up the street. It turned out he was okay. He was just hurt, his back hurt. We get up the street, we tell my parents what happened. Who gets in trouble? Me, because I wasn't watching my brother. So that's my story with my brothers. But my older brother was athletic. I wasn't. And my younger brother wasn't athletic. He was just a troublemaker.
Alexa, turn off the living room. So, I'm trying to think. What was like do you have a memory besides that one, with your brothers?
Yes, I remember my older brother, we were out in the backyard making this huge snowman. It wasn't even a snowman, it was just a big thing made out of snow. And I think my younger brother, we used to have metal shovels. They didn't have plastic shovels back then. And he was whipping the shovel around and he got my brother in the lip. So my brother is bleeding profusely out of the lip. And I think I was already in the house and my mother is looking at my brother from inside the house. He's on the stoop bleeding. And she's like, stay right there. Don't come in the house. Get blood all over the house.
Oh my God.
That was scary.
That was scary. Yes.
Yeah, you can say their names, obviously.
Yeah.
So what were your parents like growing up?
My mother was
what did they do for work? Yeah.
My mother was a stay-at-home mom. She was a neat freak. I mean, you couldn't get your hands on the walls. You get fingerprints on the walls. She was a great cook. I mean, she loved to bake. She loved to bake cakes. She was always making cakes for everybody in the neighborhood and bringing them over to her. For one of my birthdays, she made baked Alaska, which is the cake with the ice cream in the middle, and you put that in the oven and the ice cream doesn't melt. So she made that that was a good memory I have of a birthday party, that she made this baked Alaska. I didn't get along with her in my teenage years. We were like oil and water. And I was very close to my dad. He loved to talk to all our friends. They'd come in the house. He'd be sitting at the table talking with all our friends. He was the one that was social, and everybody gravitated to my dad. He was just one to hang out with. Everybody loved my dad.
Were you close to your grandparents on either side?
I used to go to my grandma Dormandy's, my dad's mother, and I would sleep overnight there, and I had a cousin that I would hang out with. And I still remember I had an appendix attack there when I stayed overnight, and my poor grandmother, she was probably, I don't even know how old she was, but I was in the bathroom and it was coming out both ends, and she was like, I don't know what to do with you. So she's calling my parents. They ended up coming and get me, and I had to go to the hospital, and they got my appendix out. So I always remember going to her house, though. She would have tea. She always had tea and toast, so she'd give me tea and toast, and then I'd go in the backyard and cross the street and go to visit my cousins. So we'd always hang out. And there was a little corner store we'd walk to and get, treats. So that was fun.
Okay, now we're talking about injuries and surgeries and stuff. What did you have any besides that, any bad falls or injuries, or did your brothers or your parents even, did they have any bad accidents or anything?
My dad almost got killed when he worked for the GE. He had this 1-ton piece of equipment fall on his hand, and his hand was permanently injured. They ended up having to take grafts from his thigh to put on his hand, and he couldn't use his hand completely. It was still a little deformed, his one hand. And it was shortly after they got married, I think. And my mother and him were staying at his parents', I think, just for extra help. I don't think she had any kids yet. So that was a big injury for him. I had one when I was 2. I still have the scar on my wrist. I was playing across the street and I was with my older brother, and I was in the backyard, but there must have been glass, and I fell on the glass, and so I was bleeding a lot, and Gary brought me back, and my mother didn't have a car back then. There was only one car in the family, so my father was at work, so she went next door to my neighbor, and there was a nurse visiting my next door neighbor, and she had her own car, so she brought me to the hospital, and even though I was only 2, I still remember all the blood on the front seat. It was scary for my mother, I think.
It's the things, like certain things you like stick in your head, like for life.
Yeah,
some
yeah.
Like, and sometimes I think like you can like over the years kind of like change what really happened slightly. Like you're not sure. You're like, I think I remember that's what happened. Like, or did I kind of?
Yeah,
like,
from what you hear,
sure.
from what you hear your parents.
Hear from the people and
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah.
Okay, now I'll go back to the list. So, yeah, let's talk about school. What was the school's name, and what was it like going there? Who's your favorite teacher? What trouble did you get in there? What was your favorite class?
Okay, I went to Tamarack. It was a small country school, class of only 100. I was a little quiet, I think, in high school. But I think it was like 10th grade, there was a drama club. And I decided to try out for that. And I got a lead part. And my teacher, Mrs. Ecker, she was an English teacher and the drama teacher also. And I loved her. She was a great teacher. And when she saw me try out for the part, she was like, I was totally amazed at your audition, Debbie, because you're quiet, but you were just like vibrant on the stage. You loved to do that. So I was Lily Lackamoney. I don't even remember the name of the play, but I remember I was Lily Lackamoney. So I was in that play, and that was fun. And I think I was a nun in The Sound of Music, which Michelle was a nun in The Sound of Music in school, and so was Christine. She was a nun in The Sound of Music. So at one time, I still have it, the picture of all of us dressed as nuns. All 3 of us were a nun in Sound of Music, so that was pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah, what was like your favorite studies? Who was your favorite teacher?
Well, my worst subject was history. I do not know history at all. My favorite subject was probably math. I did really well in math. I actually got 100 on my Regents. I remember my teacher calling me in and saying, you got 100 on your Regents math exam. So math just came very easily to me. I took typing. They had typing back then. So I typed on a regular electric, I don't even think it was electric back then, I don't know, but you had to hit the return and, type and hit the return. So, yeah.
Mechanical keyboard. That's what they're called, I think, right? Yeah. We had one growing up, actually. That's what I type my papers on. All right, let's go prom first.
I never really liked prom because I don't remember having any boyfriends in high school. I had one from another school, and I can't remember if he came to my prom, but I do remember going to a LaSalle prom, which is a private school, with well, she wasn't a sister-in-law then, but my sister-in-law, Mary, it was her brother. So I went to a prom with him at LaSalle. But I don't know if I ever went to prom at Tamarack because I wasn't dating anyone back then. I remember going to dances and it was just uncomfortable because if you didn't get asked to dance, you're just sitting around the dance floor and not doing anything. So I don't think I ever went to a prom at my school. And my prom dress at LaSalle was completely covered down to my arms and completely covered up here with this high frilly neckline. So there was no skin showing anywhere.
Different fashion, huh?
Yes.
A little bit. Oh, Michelle, there's no way I'm going to get through all this.
I know, so I feel like you should skip down to,
Other stuff.
like, yeah.
No, that's okay. I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit.
Yeah, you can pick and choose, like, if there
I-
are any up there that.
Oh no, I am.
Okay.
Well, I've only gotten through the first
I
four.
know, that's why you don't have to go through all of them. But there are some good, like, life ones in here.
You can say it out loud.
What's your biggest regret? What would you tell yourself in high school looking back now?
And it doesn't matter what other people think. Do your own thing. And I guess my biggest regret is getting married at 20. I feel like I wasted the best part of my life getting married that young.
So how long were you guys married for, and how did you guys meet?
We were married for 7 years, and I met through my next door neighbor, Doreen. It was her boyfriend's good friend, so they introduced me. And I should have known, and my parents didn't like him. I should have listened to them. So we ended up getting married and moving away, which was hard on my parents too. It was a good experience for me as far as moving away and getting independent and forcing myself to make new friends down in Georgia. But I definitely got married too young. So I feel like I missed out on all the fun things in life and
In your 20s.
in my 20s. Yeah.
Where'd you guys move to?
Savannah, Georgia. Yep. And I did not like Savannah.
What was the decision? Why Savannah?
That's where his Army base was. He was stationed there. He was in the Army.
That makes sense. So,
Go ahead.
what?
I do want to ask, how'd you know when you're...
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask
Okay,
next.
good.
So at what point did you know that your marriage was over?
Well, there was one time that I split up with him and moved back with my parents for a short time, and he always promised that it would be better and he wouldn't do it again because he was abusive mentally and physically. And I was of the belief that you just work things out and don't get divorced. I had a high regard for marriage and I didn't want to just say this is over. Plus I did love him, but I finally got strong enough to say I can't take this anymore. And I'm glad I was strong enough, and thank God I was strong enough. And it was a very hard struggle because I was debt-ridden. I had a lot of debt, and I struggled, which I think made me a stronger person. And he just wasn't changing, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I mean, it wasn't a good way to live. So
then after that, how long was it, and how did you meet AJ?
for a long time, I was very against even going out with a guy. I didn't want to have anything to do with men for a long time. I had no respect for them. I thought they were all the same. And me and my friend that I've known forever, Carol, we started going to bars because she was single, and we'd meet a lot of not so good people. And so my father saw this article in the paper about the single ski club. He said, Deb, you might want to join this club. So I showed it to Carol. Carol and I went to the meeting, and the people were wonderful. They were all our age. They all did all these different activities. They did hiking and kayaking and skiing and volleyball and dances, and they all were very friendly. So we liked it. But then Carol met her current husband, and so she didn't want to go anymore. And I said, well, I'm going to keep going, even though I don't know anybody. So I kept going, and I met a great group of people. I started doing all the fun things that I missed out on, hiking and canoeing and going on trips. And that's when I met a guy through the ski club, and he treated me like gold. I was like, I have never been treated like this before, and I was in heaven. So I dated him for a good year, and then we just decided it wasn't working out. And I don't think I dated anybody else in the ski club. And then I was on the applicant committee, so anybody that came into the ski club, I had to give them the spiel about the ski club. I saw what they did for a living and, all their history. So I had signed AJ up, my husband. So we started doing things together. And I remember there was another ski club person that I was friends with, and we did these air bands where we would dress up as other people. And so I wanted to be Elvis Presley. And AJ said, well, I can lend you a pair of my white pants. And I said to him, I can't wear your pants. They'd come up to my knees, because he was shorter than me. But we still got married, even though he was shorter than me. And we just started doing things together, and it became more friends. We were friends, but then it became more like, I really like this guy. And I still remember calling my mother up. We were talking, and I was talking about AJ and skiing, and he makes me laugh. And I said, but Mom, he's shorter than me. And she said, that doesn't make any difference. That's fine. So we got married, and it'll be 35 years this year.
So how long did you guys date? And did you have like an anniversary? Like, did you say like, oh, like what was that moment where you guys knew that you were together?
Well, there was a night that we always went out with Mary Beth and maybe another girl, and we'd always do it together. And there was one night we were going to go to the movies or something, and he said, so should we ask Mary Beth? And I said, no, let's not. Like, I wanted to go out with him without Mary Beth. So I guess that was the turning point, and I think that might have been the first night.
So then how long did you guys date, and when did he propose, and how did he propose?
It was probably a year, and he had a very unique way of proposing. He sent me letters, and I was working at the Sterling Winthrop, a pharmaceutical company, and I got a letter with a W, and it was passion fruit jelly. Or no, was it? It might have been roses. I can't remember. No, it might have been the passion fruit jelly. So I open it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? Because it came right to my office. So I get on the phone, I call my mother. She says, that sounds like a weirdo. That sounds like somebody crazy. So every day I was getting another letter, and with like roses, or what else did I get? Perfume. So every letter I got a gift, a small gift. So it might have been after I got the eye that my boss that works, everybody started wanting to see what was going to come. He said, he's proposing to you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, really? So when I got the L, I'm like, oh my gosh, he is. So me and my friend Carol, they worked in a different building. At lunchtime, we would go over to where they have the security to let people in. And we would sit at lunchtime just seeing who was delivering these things, because we wanted to see if it was AJ or whatever. And they didn't come. So then we went to the security guy and we're asking him who's delivering these things. And they said, I don't know, it's a different person. I don't know. Because he had hired somebody at the florist to deliver all these gifts. So it wasn't him delivering the gifts. So I remember he had gotten to Will You M, and we were all camping, a whole group of us from the ski club, and Nancy and Bill, which are good friends. And we were camping, we had a lot to drink, we were drinking gin and tonics, and they're all joking with AJ. She knows, just spit it out and ask her. So I think he did it on a lawn chair while we're camping. And I'm like, but after that, he still continued to give me the letters. And on our wedding day, he gave me a question mark. So he still gave me something on our actual wedding day. But it really bugged me. We announced it, and we were going out for our engagement party, but I still didn't have a ring because I still had my diamond from my first husband, and I wanted to use that. It was a nice diamond. So he had to figure out how he was going to do it, and he didn't have the ring. But I wanted, if I'm having an engagement party, I want to show off my ring. So I didn't have my ring. So he still has to hear that from me. But I have a beautiful ring. Someday, somebody's going to get it.
So going back to when you guys were dating, when did you when did you know that you're probably gonna marry him? And when did you at what point were you like, I think I can marry again? Because you were married.
Yeah.
And there must have been a long time, even dating him, that you were like.
It was probably when I decided to move in with him. It was a big decision because we were constantly at each other's places. And instead of going back and forth, he said, well, why don't you move in? And it took me a lot to leave my place, which I loved, to move in with him. And my mother kept asking me, are you sure? You're giving up your nice apartment. I said, yeah, I'm sure. And I mean, it just felt right. But it was actually a good thing I moved out, because as I was going to collect, I was at his apartment and I went back to my place to get some things, and I had already decided I was going to move in with him. All these policemen are around my building, and there's police tape all around the next door neighbor's house. And I got out of the car and the policeman says, do you have business here? I said, well, yeah, I live in this apartment building. And I said, what's going on? He said, this lady was murdered. I'm like, are you kidding? And I knew, I had talked to her over the fence. She was a sweet old lady. And he said, yeah. And I found out it was a past tenant that came in and robbed her and killed her. So after that, I was like, and my mother was glad I was moving out after that. It's like, all right, you're getting out of there.
Did you know that? So you guys moved in to a place that he was renovating?
Yes.
To?
And
was it a dentist's office?
It was an orthopedist office, and he had bought it with his brother, and they were renovating it. And me and Mary Beth, we'd go over there and knock out walls, which I had never done. I didn't even know what drywall was until I met AJ. So he was already wanting to renovate this and make it into a downstairs apartment and then rent the second and third floor. So yeah, I spent a lot of time over there. He spent a lot of time at my place. So yeah.
So when did you guys decide that you want to have kids?
Oh, right away. It was shortly after we got married. We knew we wanted kids, and we were, let's see, how old was I? 87. So I was 31. So within a few months, we said, let's just not be on birth control anymore, because we didn't know how long it would take. So we didn't have a honeymoon plan until April. We were going to go to Vail, Colorado and Hawaii. And we just went away to Sturbridge Village in November after our wedding. So shortly after that, I went off the pill, and I said, well, who knows how long it'll take? Well, little did I know that I'd get pregnant right away. And so I was pregnant when we were going Vail skiing. So I went to the gynecologist, and I'm like, well, we're supposed to go skiing next month. Can I ski? No, you really shouldn't ski. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I ended up skiing a little bit, but I was a nervous wreck. I was nervous I was going to fall. So I only skied a couple of days, and then we were in a high altitude, and I was just sicker than a dog because of the altitude. So we ended up leaving a day early and going down to Denver, and I felt so much better. And then we went to Hawaii, Maui, Hawaii after that. And I couldn't drink, but I remember being on the beach reading What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Just getting ready. What was your first impression of AJ? I guess we kind of like hovered over like when you first met him, but like what was your first impression?
I remember having an argument about how guys are, and they all want one thing. And me and Mary Beth were against guys. We both were against guys, and he's trying to say good things about being a guy. Not all guys are like what we had experienced. So that was one. I still remember that conversation. But I remember him being very funny, because that's what I told my mother. I said he makes me laugh, which is good. And very, just an all-around nice guy. So different than what I had been used to, so yeah.
So how about your wedding day?
It was very cold and windy. He gave me a question mark. We had, everybody was at our house. We had, the church was right around the corner from us. So we got married in the church. It was a beautiful church. And I just had a maid of honor, my best friend that I've known, now it's 40 years. And he just had a best man, his good friend from law school. And from the church, we walked to it was a Elks Club. So we could walk right to that. And it wasn't anything fancy because we were paying for it. But, we had a great time. We had all the ski club people there, all my family, his family, and it was just a big party. So I still remember all of us, all the ski club people getting under the big elk, the mammoth elk they have on the wall, and they were wrapping me up in toilet paper or something, and they had us all along the wall under the elk, and they took a big group picture.
Was Doreen your maid of honor?
No, Carol.
Oh, Carol.
Doreen was in my first wedding.
So, let's see. So what was the most challenging time in you and AJ's relationship, do you think?
Probably when I had depression. That was very difficult. And he was a saint. Because I don't know how he put up with me, as it was not fun to be around me at that point. But back then, depression wasn't a thing you talked about. And it was my good friend Nancy who recognized, because she had it. So she kind of knows what to look for. And we were there visiting once, and she said, are you doing all right? Because, I have depression, and I think you might have it. And I was like telling AJ this, and he's like, what? Depression? He just thought I was being moody. So I had the hardest time going in a phone book, looking up psychiatrist, and calling a psychiatrist. There was that much stigma attached. Now it's like, give me some drugs. Everybody's got depression and anxiety. So that was a very hard time because it took them a while to get my medicine right. But he was a saint. You got to go through the hard times, the good times, the sickness. Marriage isn't easy. It's not a piece of cake. So there's a lot of times where people just say, all right, I'm done. But
what do you think AJ has taught you in life? I'm sure many things, but what do you think is like something that you've taken away from him over the years that you like are just like, I don't think I would have learned this like without him?
Probably go with the flow and not worry so much. And just enjoy yourself and not worry. Because I think as I've aged, I don't worry as much. I kind of, I don't know, take things in stride and don't sweat the small stuff, as they say. Because I used to worry a lot more than I do now.
Since I've known you, don't worry at all.
Oh, I used to worry.
You're like, since I've known you, you've been like me. Whatever.
No, I used to be stressed. Yeah, really stressed. This is fun.
I knew you would like this thing. It's so funny. We're like 5 minutes in. That's what she loves this. So what was AJ's love language?
Oh, we did that too.
But no, you don't even have to say what it is. Like what the.
He likes more romance and what am I trying to? More touching and romance and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like him doing things for me, I think, yeah.
I think from an outside perspective, I think you like spending time together.
Mm-hmm.
And you like quality time.
Right.
I forget what that's called, but that is
Yeah.
No, it's literally quality time.
Quality time.
Yeah, quality time.
Right.
And then physical touch.
Physical touch is one.
Is the
yeah, that's AJ.
Affirmation is another
Words
one.
of affirmation.
Words of affirmation.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
And acts of service.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I think
you are active service.
I'm active service. I think AJ's really good at, and it's something that like I'm awful at, is words of affirmation.
Yeah.
I hear him say all the time
yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'm always like,
yeah. Yeah.
So when did you know? At what point did you know that he was going to be a great father? She's like, he's not. Still waiting.
Probably right away. I mean, he was always there. I mean, he always pitched in. He always helped out. He wasn't one of these fathers that, you're in charge of all this. He, got in there and changed diapers and, did everything. So I knew he was going to be a good father.
What was the moment that you can, it's just like a stuck memory in your head about AJ when the girls were little?
I remember him dancing with you guys all the time. You were a little older. But yeah, he would always turn the music on and dance with them. He loved doing that. Trying to think of anything else. And even when I work nights, I work part-time, he would get all these little people and they would make trains or parades all around the house. So you'd have these lines of little people all around I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to clean up all this stuff. So yeah, he enjoyed playing with the kids and going to all their activities. He'd always make time and get off work and go to their apple races and just, he wanted to be involved. He didn't want to miss out on anything.
Yeah. What was one of your favorite trips? You guys have gone on a lot of trips together.
Oh, jeez.
What about, let's go back to just when it was just you and AJ, what was like one of your favorite trips that you guys just had? And then we'll talk about with the whole family after.
It might be the one that we went for Vail. Oh, that was Vail and Maui. Yeah, it was probably Vail and Maui. Because that was really our first big trip. We'd go to bed and breakfast, and we went on another little ski trip for a weekend with the ski club. But that was probably our first big vacation. And I didn't do a lot of traveling until I met him. We didn't do a lot of traveling. We didn't have money for that. I didn't have money. I was pretty poor for a while.
Were you worried when you first met him that he was a lawyer?
No.
No. I feel like some people, there's like a stigma with it a lot of times.
No.
No, it just wasn't a
Yeah,
concern.
no.
Because you kind of knew, I guess like you knew him outside of that entirely. You didn't know.
Oh, right,
as
from
a
the ski
professional.
club.
It was like ski club.
Yeah,
kind of, like, broke
and
that
he didn't
barrier.
act like a lawyer in the ski club.
What was the funniest thing that ever happened with parenting when Michelle and Christine were little?
Funniest thing.
Or scariest thing?
While he was parenting, or
Just both of you, just while. What do you remember, like, when they were like, even, like, I mean, I'm talking, like, 3 to, like, 12.
I remember a really scary, we were both scared, it was when Michelle, we didn't know what she had. She had to go for blood tests because she was very anemic and her spleen was enlarged. And so they wanted more blood tests. And all I could think of was lymphoma or Hodgkin's disease or something, because I worked in a medical field. So all I could think of was cancer with an enlarged spleen. So we were really scared. And we finally got word from the doctor that it was, what was it? What was the name of that? What's the name of it? They call it kissing disease.
mono.
Oh, mono. Yeah, mono. So she had mono. And I got off the phone, I said, AJ, she's got mono. And we were like elated because she was sleepy too. And I think your glands were swollen, but yeah, we were like so thankful that it was mono.
A little bit crazy.
Yes.
What about Christine?
Well, she's had stitches. I remember her going to the doc. I remember she fell backwards on a radiator, and Dad had her on the counter at West Lawrence, and I'm looking at it, and it was wide open gash in the back of her head. I said, AJ, she needs stitches. No, she doesn't. I said, yes, she does. So we took her to the ER and got her stitched up. She needed stitches, but that's not a really big deal. Nothing really, really scary happened. Really funny. I can't think of anything.
What was the tradition, like holiday, or really any tradition that you had as a child that you've carried over to now? Or I guess, what traditions did you have as a kid? Did you have any holiday traditions? Christmas, Thanksgiving?
Well, Christmas, we would always have Christmas at home, and then we'd go to my aunts and uncles, because all 3 of them lived in one neighborhood. So we'd go to each house, have a drink, see all the cousins, then go to the next house. And then we'd end up at my Uncle Raj's. And that's, my father was closest to him. And we'd go down in his basement and we'd put the music on and we'd dance, all these like waltzes with my uncle, and he would dance, and we'd all hang around the bar for a little while and have a few drinks and talk, and then we'd go back to our house and have dinner. But with our kids, we would always go out for dinner on Christmas Eve, and we'd go to one neighborhood and look at the lights, and then we would go home. I'd always give them presents, a few presents, usually pajamas or slippers or something. And then the next morning we would spend the day. My parents would come over for dinner. So we'd just stay home for Christmas because I didn't want to go anywhere.
Still going to see lights is like a tradition.
Yeah.
Everybody does that. That's
right.
For sure.
Yeah.
What's the best advice? We're going to talk about some advice here. That's what it looks like. What's the best advice you can give to new parents?
Make time for yourselves and have a date night. Go out at least once a month. AJ and I always did that. We would find a babysitter. I think he had a secretary as a first-time babysitter, or my parents, not his parents so much, but find a babysitter and go out because you need to get out. Plus, you also need time for yourselves. Time away from just go out and do something for yourself, even if it's just to go for a walk somewhere, but you need time because kids can just drain you, so you need to rejuvenate.
This brings up a question that I have. Where was AJ living what brought him to Albany?
Albany Law.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Oh, he went to St. Rose too.
Yeah. Okay. What's your best relationship advice outside of it?
Probably communication, and just be open and talk about things. Because sometimes we have to work on that. AJ's not as much of a talker and open. So yeah, you definitely got to talk about things and don't keep pent up emotions. You got to let it out.
That's for sure. What's the best advice you've ever received? I love this question. It's a tough one.
It's probably what I tell other people is to make time for yourselves. Because I think somebody else had told us that, to make time for yourselves when you have kids and go on date nights. And we really tried to do that.
How early on?
It's when I...
1 month.
It took me... It was hard to leave you.
Right.
So I think... it was Christine, and I know it was Maria that we had, his secretary, because she had a little boy, Christine's age. But I don't know how old... I probably had my mother maybe come over for a while, until I even got used to leaving the baby, because you just don't want to leave the baby. Nobody can take care of the baby as good as you. It's very hard. You don't realize how much you love this child that you've just gotten. So I don't know if it was like 6 months or maybe it was later than that. I don't know. But even, I will be there. I'll come over and you just go out and
Perfect.
go out for dinner, do something.
3.5 hours away.
You just have to put up with me for a few days. You might want to go out more than once.
I like these two questions. I'm going to start with this because it might lead into the next. What was your most embarrassing moment?
When? My whole life?
No. What was your most embarrassing moment? Like, did you have, growing up, did you have, trying to think, for me, what mine would be.
Huh.
Oh, I know what it would be.
I don't
When I was
know.
in high school. That's okay. All right. Did you ever get arrested?
No,
Okay.
never got arrested.
What did you do that you should have gotten arrested for?
Oh, you want me to tell this story?
Oh, I don't know this.
I don't know.
Yes, you know this story. I think I told you.
I don't know this. No, wait. We started to get it one night at the Cape.
I'm pretty sure I told this story.
Say it. I want it.
I don't know.
All right, I'll tell the story. Don't think badly of me. I was young. I was like 19.
No. I remember this. Go ahead.
Should I tell the story? No.
It's not that.
All right, so I don't know if he was a fiance at the time, my boyfriend, I was like in college. No, I was still living home. Yeah, so I was in college, 18. So he was a bartender at this place off of Pauling Avenue. So I went and I was hanging out at the bar while he bartended. And so I was drinking. And back then, the DWIs, it wasn't DWIs. You could just drink and drive and it was no big deal. The cops would just tell you to make it safely home. So I had way too much to drink. It was a snowy night. The roads were horrendous. I was driving home. I was on Pauling Avenue, or it might have been Route 2. I don't know. So all of a sudden, my car is going sideways up the road, and the car was coming in the other direction, hit my car. I did a 360, and then I was going in the opposite direction. My glasses fell off. I saw the guy next to me. He was going the opposite direction. I looked at him, and I said, "Oh, shit," and I took off. Didn't have my glasses on. I couldn't see. It's snowing like crazy. I get home. I think I looked at my car in the dark. I'm like, oh, it doesn't look bad. So I went to bed. I hear my father the next morning, "Debbie!" And I'm like, what? What happened to your car? And I get out of bed. And he said, "What happened to your car?" I said, "I don't know, nothing." So I go on out and look, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a huge dent in the back of my car. I go in, I said, "I don't know what happened to my car." I don't know if I went back to bed, but I got up shortly after that. I said, "I went to this pub on River Street," and I said, "It must have happened there. Somebody must have rammed into me, and I didn't notice it when I got in the car." He said, "Well, we need to call the police." And I'm like, "Oh no, you don't need to call the police." You don't need to call the police. And so then they knew there was more to the story than what I was telling. So they didn't push it. And I never told them until many years later. And they said, "I always knew something was going on that you hadn't told us about." So I worked at a hardware store right on Hoosick Street. And here I have this big, terrible gash in my car. It's all bent up and I could still drive it. So I was afraid to park it with the dent there so people could see it. So I had to park it in the back of the parking lot the other way around. Every time we got a knock on the door, I thought it was the police coming to get me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be arrested for hit and run. Every time the phone rang, I thought it was somebody to tell my parents what happened. And luckily, nothing ever happened. So hopefully the guy's okay. I don't even know. Maybe it was a girl. I don't know. But I was very scared, and I was lucky I didn't get caught.
Yeah, I remember that story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I have another story.
This one I don't know.
With Doreen and the pizza. So I was grounded for some reason. I don't remember what. And I always like going to the basketball games with my girlfriend. We loved going to the basketball games and watching the guys play basketball. So my parents said I couldn't go I can't remember the reason. So they were going to the basketball game. I think my brother Gary, of course, he was a jock, so he was playing basketball. So Doreen said, "Do you want to go?" And I said, "Well, I'm not supposed to." She said, "We'll give you a ride." So I said, "All right." So my parents are on the other side of the bleachers. I'm on this side on the bleachers. I'm trying to hide so they don't see me. So we're both watching the basketball game, and I'm trying not to be seen anywhere near my parents. So I was going to get a ride home with Doreen and hopefully get home before my parents. Well, her father was late because he was getting pizza. So I said, oh, there's no way we're going to get there in time before my parents. Well, my parents decided to go out after the basketball game. So Doreen drops me off. I'm running into the garage. I'm opening the garage. And just as I'm pushing down the garage door, I see my parents coming down the street. And I run in. I get in, making believe I had been there all the time. And they said, who was in the garage? I said, nobody that I know. And they said, oh, I thought the garage door was going down. I thought, I don't know. There's nobody in the garage. So they never found out.
That's good.
So I told them about that a while ago too.
I think I know a lot.
Yeah, let me see. How did you decide on how many kids?
I always wanted 3. But then after I had 2 and I was having all the depression issues, I said, nope, I can't have any more. I can't deal with more than 2.
Did you have depression after Christine?
It started after Christine. And then it got worse with each child. And I think it was because of my personality. I worried about what you were doing at different stages. And I wasn't a relaxed mother.
No, like any are.
What is your favorite quality about Dad?
I guess making me laugh.
Okay.
That's why I didn't have that.
He still jokes whenever he makes me laugh. He said, I can still make you laugh after all these years.
It's a good thing. That's for sure.
Sometimes he doesn't make me laugh. And I'm like, that was not a good joke.
His dad jokes don't make you laugh.
No.
Who was your first kiss, first love, first heartbreak?
My first kiss was probably when we used to do that, go to parties and play spin the bottle. I think it was Michael Wade. He lived on my street. That was my first kiss. My first date, first boyfriend was from Abel Park. So I was like a cool girl to be going out with a football player from Abel Park because they were our rivals. Abel Park was our rivals. So, and my first date was at a auto racing, a stock car race, which was dusty and just watch cars go around and around.
Was it Lebanon Valley?
Lebanon Valley. That was my first. That was my very first date, Lebanon Valley. I was a country girl. So I don't know how long we dated, but I was the one that wanted to break up with him. I would say my first love was Dale, and he was from a different school. He went to Troy High. I don't even know how I met him. But I remember I was very upset when he broke up with me. That was very upsetting. So I didn't date a whole lot of people. There was another guy I dated for a little while, but not a whole lot of people.
Anything else?
I think that's all pretty.
Anything else you want to talk about?
I can't think of anything.
Covered a lot.
I know, this is fun. Hi, grandkids.
What do you think the greatest invention has been during your lifetime? And then I think we're done.
Good, because I only have 2 minutes left.
Probably microwave ovens are pretty cool. I mean, we didn't have microwave ovens. I remember giving my mom a microwave oven. Or maybe Having cable? I mean, we had to wait for Wizard of Oz to come on every year. And if you missed it, you were out of luck. We had to wait for certain shows to come on every year.
And that was the first one in color?
Yes. We didn't have remote controls. We had to get up and turn the TV channel. But microwaves are pretty, I wouldn't say cell phones. I would prefer cell phones weren't even here.
I knew you.
She would have said internet.
Oh, internet. That's true. Internet is great. I used to go to libraries and have to research for term papers. We used to go through encyclopedias and have a whole bookshelf of encyclopedias and have to research. Now you can just get on the internet. That's true. The internet is really good.
What was the big encyclopedia?
Britannica Encyclopedia. Yep.
That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
Yeah, so I guess the internet is pretty cool.
All right, we'll end with that.
You what?
We'll end with that.
That's a wrap.
That was good.
That was good.
Coming along.
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
I told you it wasn't going to be 20 minutes.
No, yeah, you covered a lot. Oh my gosh.
That was
wow.